Welcome to the Online Great Books podcast, brought to you by OnlineGreatBooks.com, where we talk about the good life, the great books, great conversation, and great ideas. I'm Scott Hambrick.
And I'm Carl Shute.
It's another podcast. I don't know what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, so this one is unscripted.
Wait a minute. How dare you? They're all unscripted.
But this is more unscripted. This is like back when I used to watch MTV. They would have this supposedly cool show where they would bring in bands like Guns N' Roses or whatever, and it'd be Guns N' Roses Unplugged. And they'd just sit there and they'd hand them acoustic instruments and say, well, this is what they sound like. But it was never that. They'd always planned it out and arranged everything. But we really haven't planned anything out. I don't know what we're going to talk about.
We had some questions for some people. We thought we could answer some of those, and then
we'll
talk about what we're working on.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the sorts of books we read. I'm thinking I need to get Scott Hambrick to read some continental philosophy. If you could see his face right now.
Well, we read your Gabriel Marcel. Isn't that enough?
Well, but there's so much more. I was thinking Kierkegaard or...
No, I agree.
Heidegger, maybe.
Yeah.
He just rolled his eyes. I wish you could see it.
No, that's fine. We could do that. When are we going to do that?
Well, I don't know. Sometime this year. There's some short things we could do. I was just poking through Husserl's Crisis of the European Sciences earlier. He had a nice line. He said, positivism decapitates philosophy.
I agree with that.
I don't know. I never get to the answers. It's always introductions.
Does that mean
That's a thing with phenomenology. It's always an introduction, too. It's never actual stuff you can take away and do anything with. It's always an introduction to thinking about the problem of being or something.
It's always some European guy saying, it seems like, to me.
Yep.
What are you reading right now?
I am reading Solzhenitsyn, The Gulag Archipelago, and this book is so hard. I think it'd be worth us doing, or at least some of it.
I'm in. Why is it hard? Or how is it hard?
It is hard because of the subject matter.
Right.
I had to stop. I'll give you a teaser, a taste. So there's a chapter in here about the Vlasov men. My pronunciation of Russian is bad, but it's all these waves of recruits coming into the Gulag. And the Vlasov men, so there was a Russian liberation army, okay? These were not Soviets. These were exiles. These were enemies of the Soviets who, because they had no place else to go, ended up collaborating with the Nazis. All right, they started collaborating with the Nazis, but then they became free agents. And at the end of the war, they were fighting on their own. And Solzhenitsyn is describing it. They had no place to go. They were hoping that they would get the Allies to like them enough to make them not have to go back home to Russia. And so if you see the beautiful city of Prague today, Prague was defended, at least as Solzhenitsyn tells it, from destruction by the Nazis by this stateless Russian Liberation Army. This was their big military success. They defended Prague. It wasn't the Soviets who defended Prague. It was the non-Soviet Russians who defended Prague. Well, what happens after the war? Because we worked with Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt might have been dead at this time, we're sending them back. Right. So all the Russian expatriates got sent back. And it took guns sometimes to do it. There's a story about the British sending a bunch of Cossacks back. There's Cossack families jumping into the river. They'd rather drown than go home.
Right.
But we sent them, the Allies, sent them back.
Right.
That's why it's a hard book. Because you read it, oh my gosh, I thought they were good guys. That's why it's hard. And so I have to stop every now and then and go look at flowers or something. So, well, anyway, I think it's a worthwhile book. It's all about memory. Who's going to remember these people? Mm-hmm. And so that was what he was doing. I'm just reading the abridged version. The whole thing is 3 volumes.
Oh, it's an enormous work.
So that's what I'm reading right now.
Yeah, I'm game for that.
But stay happy when you do it. It could take you to a dark place.
I'm already there. Now where are we going, though?
I don't know. What are you reading right now?
I'm reading, oh my gosh. I'm reading Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra for my home book group. We meet a week from tonight, and we'll be talking about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, Shakespeare's hard for me to discuss. Because,
Why so?
There's no syllogisms in it. It's so boring. I'm kind of uninterested in the human drama stuff.
I noticed that.
I really am. I'm like, yeah, okay, people don't get along.
I'm not so sure that you are uninterested in it.
Well, how about this? There's plenty of it. I don't need extra.
Okay, so what I remember from my high school English class, this was one of the bright moments of my life.
Can't say that about my high school English class.
No, well, John Waddell was my teacher. I was looking him up. I can't find him. I don't know where he is. He'd be old right now, quite old. He was the tough teacher. He gave me a C or a D on some exposition of poetry that I did, and it made me so mad that it flipped a switch.
Right.
And I started figuring out there was something to this, and then I ended up getting an A. But he's the reason I read Moby Dick in high school, because he was hard on me. And we would do Shakespeare, and he's like, well, why do we read Shakespeare? What's so good about Shakespeare? And I said, because it tells us about human relationships.
Right.
Ding, ding, ding.
Question mark. Right.
And he smiled, and he's like, exactly. So Iago, for example, the guy that just wants to do evil because it's evil. Do you ever know anybody like that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't need extra.
But you might want some understanding.
Right. I get it. It's still tough for me.
How about the beauty of the language? Do you ever just enjoy any of that?
That's the part I enjoy the most. We read Comedy of Errors, which is a mess. I mean, it's a comedy of errors, but there are really interesting turns of phrase and stuff in there. There was a lot of fun.
So you and I were talking. I have a daughter who's very much into theater, except she never finishes anything. I'll leave her unnamed in case she ever listens to this.
She's like a continental philosopher.
Yeah, sort of.
Never finishes anything.
And we suggested that she should do like 15-minute plays.
Yeah.
Where you write the play in 15 minutes, maybe you rehearse it for 15 minutes, and then you put it on and perform it. Well, there's reasons for that. The plots are not original. They're all in Homer. They're all in Aeschylus. You're not going to come up with a new plot. It's the execution. Are you likable? Are your characters likable? Is the dialogue funny? And Shakespeare probably was doing 15-minute plays.
Oh, he had to have. Right? How do you sharpen your sword?
Yeah, I mean, handing, apparently the actors would get handed their part and not everybody else's. And, he's sitting there writing it. Here, Macbeth, here's your part. Lady Macbeth, here's your part.
Get genuine reactions from him that way, too,
Yeah, and the stuff wasn't published. His actor friends put it together after he died, but they had to reconstruct them from the little parts that they saved. So it's a working studio that's putting out a show, every couple of weeks. It's quick.
Yeah, I hope she does that. Yeah, Mark Antony and Antony and Cleopatra. And then I finished Julius Caesar. We're going to do that one's. We're going to do both of them in one meeting because we're all have engineer brains and we're checking that box, And then of course I read whatever we have to read for this. I have until February 28th to finish Aristotle's Metaphysics again. So I cracked that thing. Mm-hmm. And then my fun reading is John Senior and the Restoration of Realism. I continue to read that. Mm-hmm. And I sure have liked that. It's by a guy named Bethel. He's a Dominican.
Benedictine, right?
I'm sorry, yeah, he's a Benedictine monk at a little monastery here in Oklahoma, Francis Bethel. He's writing about one of his mentors, John Senior, who was a co-founder of the, what do they call it? The Integrated Humanities Program, I think is what they called it, at the University of Kansas in the 70s, where he tried to put together a liberal arts educational program at that school. And he was very interested in a return a restoration of realism.
What does realism mean, Scott Hambrick?
It ain't symbolism. It ain't romanticism. It ain't modernism. Where people are rooted in reality around them. They don't look at spreadsheets. They actually do things, and they interact with the world around them. And in doing things in the real world, they're more aware of being. And in their deeper awareness of being, they have a deeper, more integrated understanding of Aristotle's law of identity. But they really understand that things be, that they have being, that something is, that things are, and other things are not.
See, this is why I need to get you to read some continental philosophy. You just said, like, things be.
That's right.
This is Soren Hambrick.
Right. They do. Stuff be being, man. He started off spending time with Eastern mysticism, and then he moved away from that stuff and started moving more and more to the rational and to the realism. He eventually kicked off this integrated humanities program, which has been an influence on me, even though it was long gone before I could have ever been around, and got lots and lots of rural kids from Kansas and Oklahoma, to read books and to learn Latin and take up honest work and be good people. And eventually he got accused, and the program got accused of proselytizing the students for Catholicism. And they did an investigation. The University of Kansas did an investigation. They said, no, he's not doing that. But we'll shut it down anyway. Yep. And they did. They shut it down. But he was a student of Mark Van Doren. And Van Doren and Adler and Stringfellow Barr and Buchanan and all these guys were working in, this sort of great books movement and the liberal arts movement all at the same time. So he's very influential on this kind of thing that we do here on the show. We hope people are doing here at their houses too. You know
what's a really good thing about online great books?
Let me count the ways. No, what?
We cannot be shut down by the academic administration.
The dean. The dean was always the bad guy in the 80s movies. The dean is always he's so square, man.
Dean Wormer.
Yeah, we don't have that problem.
But that happened a few places. That didn't just happen at University of Kansas. It happened at San Francisco. There was an institute that got shut down. For some reason, people don't like the reading of the stuff that we're reading. Yeah. They'd rather we not do it.
Stuff happens to the people who read these things.
Yeah, and so for me, if there's a thought that you don't need to read this stuff, we'll tell you what it means. We're going to shut down the programs that read it. It makes me really, really want to read it. It's forbidden.
Yeah.
Not officially.
Which makes it cool.
It's not relevant. We want to be more global. We don't need to read all of that stuff. I really want to read it then.
Yeah. The folks out there who have kids and care about having kids, I highly recommend this senior book. The whole midsection of this book is about what senior thinks is good for kids. They need to go outside and play. You learn valuable things about reality when you fall out of a treehouse. He thinks that you need to get your foot stepped on by a mule, and you need to fall out of a treehouse. You need to cut yourself with a pocket knife, and you need to nail two boards together. And you need to do all those things because it teaches us about cause and effect, and it teaches about the real world, and it kind of immunizes. Practical people become immunized against impractical, improbable ideas.
Yes.
When you're hoping to get a calf born and use that for your 4-H project and the calf dies, your ideas about social justice are a little different. Mm-hmm. It makes for very practical, very rooted people, and he thinks that he makes practical prescriptions about how to help make sure your kids understand the real world, not the fake one, but the real world. And he thinks that the more you understand the real world, the more you interact with it, the better of a life you'll be, the more good, beautiful, and true it'll be.
I want to do an inside baseball Catholic observation right this moment.
Do it.
All right, so this is what's really neat about the Benedictines.
Work.
Yeah, strict observance Benedictines, because you've got that calendar. You have, you're going to end up working in the kitchen. The bell goes off. You have to stop what you're doing, whatever deep theology you're doing. You have to stop it and go do something else.
Yep.
It makes you be rooted in a daily schedule which I think is very neat. I think, if you could secularize it, you could make your own daily calendar and say, well, I'm going to do this right now. And here's an hour and a half where I'm going to read. And then I'm going to go to the workshop and build something. And then I'm going to, take a walk or whatever. You just have a schedule that calls you back out of your head.
Right.
I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah. And recognizing that some tasks are not as real as others. Manipulating and messing with some spreadsheet isn't the same kind of thing as welding two pieces of steel together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same kind of thing.
So I'll tell you something that we've been doing here at Chez Carl, which I've really enjoyed. I got an omelet pan. It's not cast iron. It's carbon steel, but you season it just like cast iron. And it's rounded, and you put the butter and then you crack the eggs in there, and you just shake it around, and you don't have to do anything. And then you get done, and you just roll it out on your plate, and you have a perfect omelet. And so I've been making omelets every day, just doing something. And my wife we got inspired by you, she says. We got the Julia Child Part 1 cookbook, and she has made 2 of the recipes so far, the potato leek and the potato leek watercress soup. I'm waiting for her to get to the meat.
How did they
But it's delicious. It's delicious. Potato leek soup, it's the simplest ingredients, and there's nothing fancy about it.
Good.
But it's such a delicate, pure, really good flavor. Some peasant, some hundreds of years ago, dug these leeks out of the ground and threw them in the pot with the potatoes, and it made heaven.
Yep. You ever churned butter?
No, I have not churned butter.
Dear listener. you put your you put your cream in there, or your unprocessed dairy product that you get at your at the place that's near you. You can buy unpasteurized milk from. Just put it in a quart jar and just shake it and just pass it around. Like all the kids shake it and you pass it around, shake. There'll be butter in there. You pour the buttermilk off. Keep that, because you're going to put a culture in that and sour that and make biscuits out of it. But then you got the butter in there, and then you wash the butter, because you got to get the milk out of it. You got to and you wash the butter, and then you need some salt in it, and then y'all make toast and have that butter. And the kids will be like, "Oh, you mean it's not like squeezed out of some dye and wrapped in wax?" They understand a little bit more about the world, and it's so easy to do, and it tastes good too. But Senior was really, really advocated for that. He said that he was a distributist.
Yes.
So the socialists want everybody to own the means of production.
Yes.
And the capitalists, well, just whoever ends up with them, the most efficient ends up with the means of production. John Senior says, it all needs to be small business. We all need to have our own means. He thinks that being a smallholder is what leads to the best shot at the best life. So you might own your own cabinet shop. You might be a farmer. He thinks that society should be about 60% agrarian. Me too. But maybe we can't do that anymore. But he says, if you can, you need to be self-employed and you need to have your own means, because it gives you some independence and all those things that we think about. But it also more closely roots our activity to our livelihood than going and punching the time clock for the other guy.
Yeah, so this is distributivism. I hope I said that right. This is Chesterton and Belloc.
Yeah, yep.
And some other folks.
And Hambrick.
It's not very efficient.
Who cares?
I'm going to say a trigger word right now. The GNP will not be as high as it would otherwise, but a whole lot more people might have a better life. But you'd have to realize that you're not going to be able maybe to get dragon fruit from South America, wherever it grows, in the middle of winter. Yeah. That things might be more local. Your level of affluence might go down, but on the other hand, your life might go up.
Yeah.
Which is a hard idea. We've got this growth mentality that we've got to get more and more stuff, more and more cash flow, but what's your life like?
Yeah. He likes the sort of 8 hours for work, 8 hours for sleep, 8 hours for avocations and rest and refreshment.
Mm-hmm.
So he worked for 8 hours, and then he tried to spend 4 hours on the kids every day. He always had his spiritual practices that he tried to spend another 4 hours a day on. And then he slept for 8. And that was John Sr.'s world. And by the way, his spiritual practices probably included milking a cow. Just being rooted in reality and understanding how you fit in the world. And it was a big deal for him. And and it is for me too. And it's been fun to read that. And one of the fun things to read about it, the protege is writing about the mentor, and you can see the deep care that he had for John Sr. in the book. It is maybe a little hagiography, but that's okay. That's okay. John Sr. was a big help to Bethel. If all of us could only help one person as much as Senior helped Bethel, everything would be a whole lot better, I think.
Yeah. I want to go off on a tangent. I'm thinking of there's a novel that I read, because this is what I do. I think Donna Tartt wrote it.
That's a good name.
Yeah. But it's about classics students that study the classics and go very, very badly. The Secret History is what it's called. And they end up, I can't remember the plot. I thought it was well done, creepy, but they end up doing like the ancient rituals of the Greek religion, which involved human sacrifice and
like ritual prostitution and
well, the Maenads, the women that would go and they tore what's his name, the singer, what's Orpheus, that tore Orpheus into bits. And so something like that happens. There's a murder, and spoiler. And I think that some people think that if we're going to go read these classical works, we're going to end up like that. But nobody does. Yeah. I mean, not very many people do. What people do is they read this stuff, they start thinking more deeply about things, that which is, and what's good in life. And they end up, more of them end up like John Sr.'s proteges than end up like in Donna Tartt's novel.
They realize that is bees, or being is.
There's a whole lot of things being.
Yeah. That's what I've been reading, and I've really enjoyed it. The older I get, the more slowly I read, and I get real frustrated with that. But
are you worried that the things are going to collide on the graph, the books you want to read and the time that you have?
Oh, that happened 15 years ago. Yeah. No, that was a big impetus for me to start reading these things in earnest, because these great books, I'm making the air quotes, great books in earnest, because there's just not enough time to read everything. So I need to read the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have any questions?
Do I have any questions?
Yeah. Did anybody send you any questions?
Nobody sent me any questions. Did anyone send you questions?
I had some, but they're really about our program, which is kind of not interesting to people maybe that listen to the show, but I'll answer some anyway.
We can give it a shot.
Someone says, I'm not going to read any of the names. Sorry. Because I never know if they want us to read their names. Dude says, how long does it take to go through a book at Online Great Books?
It depends on the book. Some of them you have to go slower. Some of them you have to go faster. It looks like we're probably going to spend 2 months on the Ethics, Aristotle's Ethics.
Nicomachean Ethics, yep.
Which, I don't know, is 120 pages. It's not that long.
Yep. It's not necessarily the reading that dictates how long it takes us. It's sometimes how much discussable stuff is in there.
Yeah. In grad school, my Aristotle professor made the claim that there was more truth per page in Aristotle than anybody else. And maybe Thomas Aquinas could compete. Just common sense truth. You read stuff and say, oh, that's true, that's true, that's true. And it's real dense with all of that stuff. Yeah. Whereas when we get to, I'm thinking of another example, Herodotus, we go through that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of names and dates and grand actions of armies, and you can go through that stuff faster. I think I think the questions of virtue and ethics deserve a little more going over than what Xerxes had for breakfast. Yeah,
there's some weird descriptions, like secondhand descriptions of like giraffes and stuff in there that's really odd. But
it's fun, but you can go through it faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we read The Republic. The Republic's not a great big long book either, and we read it. We take 2 months for that one. But most of the stuff we handle it in the course of a month, and we build all the reading goals for our readers, hoping that the average person can get their reading done in 3 hours a week, 30 minutes a day, 6 days a week.
That's 30 minutes a day with your cell phone turned off.
Yeah,
that's important. It's going to seem that you can't do it if you're always plugged in. Unplug, sit down with your book. You'll get a whole lot done in half an hour.
Yep. Yeah, don't read in bed. Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
You can read your fun stuff in bed.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm reading John Senior in bed. Somebody said, another dude.
Dude too?
Yeah. Can we stop membership at any point? Yeah, after 90 days.
Why do we need 90 days?
Because business.
Yeah.
Some of our clients are sent to us by friends of the program, like the Art of Manliness podcast. And I often have referral deals with those people. So anybody that signs up and uses Brett McKay's Art of Manliness promo code, Brett gets compensated for that. And I need 90 days so that I don't lose my britches on people that were referred over. Right. Ain't nobody getting rich over here, but we sure can't take a bath. We're not the United Way. So we've got to, it takes us 90 days to get on top of it. And on top of that, we send 2 books on the first month. Our expenses are probably highest in the first 90 days. No, not probably. Right. They are the highest in the first 90 days. So we ask that you stay with us for 90 days.
That gets you to a few seminars.
Yeah.
Which, back when I was working in client retention, the people who left generally hadn't made the seminar.
Yeah.
That's where the secret sauce is. You read the book. You could read the book on your own. In fact, go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Most of us aren't. We need a group. We need friends, or at least people who are on the same journey that we're on, to read the stuff together and to talk about it. I think that's the best part of the program. And in 3 months, you'll have gone through 2 seminars, one on how to read a book and one on Iliad, or 2 on the Iliad, something like that.
Yeah.
And so now you've got an idea of what we're doing. If you leave after 90 days and say, I want to do it on my own, or I don't want to do it, fine. But you got a taste of what you signed up for.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for 90 days.
Yeah, the seminar is an important chunk. No kidding, it is. People need to give it 2 or 3 seminars. The first seminar is a little bumpy and can be a little odd for people. Not everybody likes to speak their minds. We're not allowed to do that in some places like work. And sometimes it takes a little time, and give it a few seminars. A lady, not a dude, says, is it possible to obtain these books on your own? Yeah.
Sure.
Library card, used bookstore. Most of the books that we read are available in out of copyright editions at archive.org, Project Gutenberg, at the used bookstore. They're cheap, and you ought to go get them. I often get asked if we have a subscription where they provide their own books and we have a discount. We discount the price from the $59 that it is if they have their own books, and the answer is no. Because we only do one thing. We only do one thing. It would take a lot of work to do another thing, actually, to create another workflow that didn't ship the book and so on. And by the way, we create these reading goals. And I think a lot of the reason that people join us is the accountability and the text selection. So we select a text that we think is a good one. And then we have reading goals, and we'll tell you today or this week, you should be reading pages X through Y. Well, if your book's different, then it makes it hard to do that. And then also when we're in seminar, we want people to talk about the books and to literally be on the same page. If Carl says, hey, this weird thing on page 85 has got me upset, you can all turn to page 85. So that's really important to us. Why these books?
Is that from Sal?
Yeah. What will reading, and here's this part 2, what will reading the books on this list do for me?
What will it do for you? It will ruin your life.
Yep, 100%.
It will.
It'll ruin the life you've got, but you'll get a different one.
It will challenge your presuppositions. These books are grenades.
We need a T-shirt. It has a picture of a grenade on it. And there's a book, like how they would paint, Merry Christmas Hitler and put it on a bomb and like paint on a bomb and drop it on Dresden or whatever. We need a hand grenade that has a picture of a book on it and says hard pleasure. And that's our next T-shirt.
They're going to cause you problems. So I'll give you an example. So I am reading, as I say, I'm reading Solzhenitsyn, Gulag Archipelago. And one of the books that we read is the dialogue, The Crito, where Socrates is explaining to his friends why he's going to sit and take that death penalty punishment that Athens has voted to him. And I hate that. I love Socrates. Socrates is my friend, but I hate that one because I'm reading things like Solzhenitsyn, where Solzhenitsyn has this line where he says, the motherland, that's what Russians call it, is the motherland still your mother if she's a whore? I mean, this is his language, Right. If she's abusing you, and is she still your mother? And Socrates is like, the laws are the mother. Oh man, that's hard. And so I have to figure out a way to understand Crito in the way that Plato meant it or the way that Socrates lived it. And it's a challenge. Otherwise, I just go in and say, I hate this. This is stupid. No, I have to think, why did he think this? Is there a way in which he's not wrong?
Is it some social contract stuff? So in Crito, is that what you say?
Yeah.
Because my redneck self, I'm like Crito. His buddy comes to him and says, hey, man, we can spirit you out of the country. I've got some money. I got a friend with a boat. Seems like he's got a friend with a boat. But they're like, we can get you out of here. We can get you out of Athens, and there's no reason for you to drink the hemlock. And Socrates says, well, it would be wrong. I've benefited from my state, my city. I've benefited from the polis. It would be terrible of me to take the benefits, but not take the deleterious things. It's kind of a social contract kind of a thing. He's like, I can't have it both ways. It wouldn't be right. It's terrible, but makes you think about that.
Well, yeah, his friend Alcibiades, his young friend Alcibiades, had been recalled. You read this when you get to Thucydides, which is one of the fantastic things. I'd read it when I was younger, and then got to reread it, was privileged to reread it as part of this program. That book is dynamite. That book is so good. Alcibiades is summoned back to Athens, and he knows they're going to put him on trial and probably execute him, and he doesn't go. Yeah. He runs to the Spartans and runs to the Persians, and because he's Alcibiades and is handsome and talented, manages to land on his feet every place. And I think about that. So Socrates is being the opposite of his student.
Yeah.
And I'm disquieted by it because I think, well, maybe he's right. Maybe you do owe a debt to the place where you come from. And I'm not settled on this question.
If nobody had a debt, how could you do anything?
Right.
Or how could the state do anything? And maybe the state shouldn't do anything. I don't know. That's another argument. But if you're France in 1914 and none of the citizens owe France anything, then they're speaking German like real fast.
Yeah.
I don't know, but all those things come up. And so, when I started reading these things, I was probably as anarcho-libertarian as you could possibly be. And I ain't now. And all of my friends have the bends because it happened to me so fast. They don't even know how to talk to me anymore.
I'm not even sure what I am.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I tell you what, I ain't that.
Yeah.
Today I'm a distributarianist, Ian. I don't know. It changes all the time. So back to the question. This is what we're reading the books on this list do for you. If you read them in earnest and you take it seriously and you actually go to the seminar, they will make you address the bedrock questions behind so many of your opinions. Because a lot of our opinions that we have and a lot of our beliefs are kind of poured in our ear between birth and age 20 by school and state, church and mom and dad and television. But we didn't get at the bedrock. And these things this will make the rebel bounce, man. This will screw up the bedrock. But if you end up clinging to one of those beliefs, you'll know why you did. It's a better belief, really.
Yeah.
Because you know why you believe it. And it'll push you off of some of those. And I think that's good.
I had a conversation in the gym. I don't think she's ever going to listen to this. With Caitlin from the gym. Caitlin finished War and Peace. She took a year and read War and Peace. And the thing that bothered her about it, there's a point to this story. There is always a point to my stories. She didn't like Tolstoy's view on free will. I asked her, well, what don't you like about it? Why don't you like his determinism? And she thought for a moment that I was going to argue with her, when in fact I agreed with her. But I wanted to know her reason. And she had an interesting reason. She thought that his determinism was tied into belief in God, and she doesn't believe in God, so she didn't like that. And I thought that was unique. What I wanted to know was why she believed what she believed. I don't really care. You know,
right? You got no dog in the Caitlin hunt, you know,
right? She's a friend of mine. I want to know what she thinks. It's interesting. That makes me think about what I think, because I hadn't thought of Tolstoy in that way. And this happens all the time in the seminars too. Yep. This was just casual conversation, but in the seminar, somebody said, well, I think Alcibiades is the best character there is. I think he was absolutely right. You're like, why? You know, defend yourself, sir. And then he will. And then maybe you don't end up agreeing with him about this traitor to Athens, but you think about it and it'll blow your mind a bit and make it bigger.
Yeah. These books make you more you, I think. It's really odd.
Make it more you.
Yeah.
Can we handle a Scott Hambrick who is more Scott Hambricky?
Yeah. Economy size. Somebody here, this is from Instagram, says, can I join with a family member, friend? Yes. You may not want to. But yeah, if you join, you can request that we put you in the same group, and we can do that. And then if you want to move, you can move. How many people are in a seminar with it? 10 or 15. 10 to 15, something like that's where we like to be. Somebody says, can I go at my own pace? Do I have to stick with the seminar? Can I go slower or faster? You can. We have about 50 seminars a month. And if you're a member, you can go to any of them you want. So there are people reading book 1 up through book, I don't know, at this point, 26 or so. And you can go to any of the seminars that you want. You're welcome to do that. I think you'll find that you want to go to yours, though. I really do. How often do seminars meet? Once a month. Although, again, you have access to all of them, and you can go to all of them. And we have some hardcore people that go to several a month. How much is the reading load? Again, it varies. The page count varies, but we try to nail it down at about 6 hours a week. I'm sorry, not right. 3 hours a week.
The bottleneck in your reading is not going to be how fast you read. It's going to be the thinking.
Yep. I got in trouble with Seminar 1. I typically write the reading goals and all the materials and stuff that we send out for the books, and I did it for politics. And Seminar 1's like 1 month, you're nuts. and we split it into 2 because, you know, we want it to be doable.
They staged a revolution.
Yep. They mutiny all the time. Somebody says, what if I've already read some of the books on the list? Yeah, I have too. It's good. You come back and do it again. You can't read the Iliad too much. Come on now.
That's true. Every time I read it, it's just as good or better. A good book gets better on rereading.
Yeah.
It's really strange.
That's a fact. Can't I just start a reading group at home? Yes.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I've got one at home. And I take part in some seminars here, and there are a number of people that in our program that have their own home groups, and then they do the groups with us too. Face-to-face groups are best, but not everybody can do it. You know, do I need to have an advanced degree to understand what we're reading, Carl?
Oh no.
I don't mean to laugh at your question.
In fact, if you had an advanced degree, what does an advanced degree mean? Let me throw some bombs out here. An advanced degree means that you have sat in grad school for 6 years or so and satisfied the requirements. It is not a measure of independent thought. It's not a measure. It's a measure of doing what they tell you. This is peer-reviewed. Okay, so the way you get stuff approved for your advanced degree is you do what everybody already believes. David Bentley Hart puts it this way in his book, in his metaphysics book. Academic people are probably the most devoted to the fashion of the age of anybody you'd meet. I'd say if you come in without the degree, you're probably going to see the Iliad a lot better. You're going to read it, and it's going to say, rage, sing goddess, the rage of Peleus, the son of Achilles. And you're going to say, oh, who's this guy? Why is he so mad? Whereas if you come at it with an advanced academic degree, you're going to read it and say, who's being oppressed? What are the systematic structures of, you're going to look at it through some kind of ideology. And I don't care which one it is, but I think that's the wrong way to do it. You come to the book and let Homer tell you a story and then figure it out on your own.
Mortimer Adler says that in school, including university, probably more at university, that you're actually rewarded for your understanding of the instructor's understanding.
Yeah, which isn't to say there's not good work done there, but just because somebody has a PhD...
There are good teachers out there.
Just because somebody has a PhD does not mean that he or she is intelligent or original, and it might mean the opposite.
Let me be less cynical. You have to read these for your own purposes. The more formal sort of mediation or shepherding that you have through one of these texts, the less you're able to do it for your own purpose. If you go to your local community college and take some class on Homer, maybe, I don't know. The guy wrote out a syllabus, or the instructor wrote out a syllabus, and they have a number of things they want to hit, and what they think are the high points of the book. And, this instructor may give it their best, good faith effort to help all of the students work through that. Mm-hmm. But if you're an older guy and one of your sons got diagnosed with cancer, you need to get something different from reading about Priam than that guy that's trying really hard to do a good job teaching, quote unquote, teaching Homer is going to do for you. So you need to come to it for your own purposes. The books are big, and there's room for you in them, and you are, in fact, in them. And so when you come to them clean, the only thing you bring to it is you and your previous experience. And I think that's when they're best.
Yeah.
Did I do a good job of that?
I think you did. I'm going to give my slant on it. So, Jane Austen. You're not a big fan. I love Jane Austen. We'll have to read some.
Yeah, we will.
I remember at the first university I worked at, walking by the room of a colleague and seeing on her board, and she was sketching out Jane Austen according to feminist categories. She had taken the Pride and Prejudice and dissected it according to that. I had another experience where a different professor was insisting that Jane Austen is a meditation on Aristotelian virtues. Okay, these are opposite ways of thinking about this text. In either case, you're not going to get to know Darcy. You're going to be thinking, when he shows up in Pride and Prejudice, you're going to be thinking of him in terms of a grand category. Is he an example of magnanimity, according to Aristotle? Or is he the oppressor in a class system? You're going to miss the story. Yeah. Read the story, meet the people, figure them out on their own terms that the author presented them to you with, and then maybe you can make your own grand scheme later.
Yeah, when you read one of these things, you can only read it one time at a time. Like when you read the Iliad, you got to read it the first time just to know what the hell happened.
I think that's a pull quote.
Thank you. Well, you can't read it the first time. Like if you go read it for a class, and I've taken some of these damn literature classes and enjoyed them, and I'm glad I did, by the way. But you've got to read it to get the beats. You're like, oh, okay, the Achaeans are here on the beach, and the wall's over there, and then they fight in the middle, and then this guy dies. Like, you got to get the beats. You got to navigate the thing and kind of understand the story. And some of these stories are complex, and it takes some mental horsepower to do that. But you can't get at the underlying themes while you're just trying to figure out what the heck happens in the book. And then you can't, compare it to all the other things you've read while you're trying to figure out what the beats in the story are and the main themes are. It takes multiple readings, but when you go take one of these classes, you kind of have to come at it with multiple approaches. Meanwhile, it's the first time you've read the damn thing. Who are these people? Where are they? What's it like? Who's dead? What's the purpose? You can't get everything from it through the first pass. And the classes require that. And I just like it when people just come to it innocent and clean. Just I'm just going to read this and just get what I can get. Because that's what you can do anyway.
Well, in a class, I have to be able to test you.
Right.
So I have to give you a framework to read it in so that I can test you according to the framework. Well, we don't have tests. We don't give you that comfort.
Yeah.
I love tests. I can pass any test you give me. I can figure out the game I can figure out what the answer needs to be, and I can pass the test.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I got the book.
Yeah. I want to go back to starting a reading group at home. I'll tell you how I started my reading group, if anybody cares. I don't assume somebody cares. I called one of my friends who I thought would be game. And I said, I want to start a reading group, and here's what I think I would like to do. And he says, that sounds like a capital idea. And I have a big table here with 8 chairs. And so that was my friend Jim. He's been on the podcast. And so I said, well, I'm going to sit in a chair, and Jim, you're going to sit in a chair. We got 6 more chairs. I suggested a few people. He suggested a few people. And I wrote them a real live letter inviting them, describing what we wanted to do.
On paper. And I said, we're going to meet on the 3rd Thursday at 6:30 p.m. for exactly 2 hours. We're going to break at 8:30, exactly at 8:30. So if you told your wife you'll be home at 9, by golly, you will be. And if you're not, it's your fault, not ours. And the first book is going to be this. And I'll be serving some hors d'oeuvres, RSVP. And I licked a stamp, put it on the envelope, and sent them out. And 4 weeks later, those people showed up. And we've been doing it about 5 years. But I've treated it, we certainly have fun. And it's not a stodgy group, but I've taken the organization of the thing and the execution of the actual meeting pretty seriously. Like, we meet the 3rd Thursday. We meet the 3rd Thursday. And it's at 6:30, and we kill it at 8:30. And sometimes some guys stay behind and chat a little more. Some of them help with dishes. But if anybody needs to leave at 8:30, so we start exactly on time and we stop on time. So it's something that people can rely on. And as a result, we've been able to rely on the guys in the group. And it's been going a long time now. We're reading Montaigne next month. Montagne. How do I say that? I don't know. I can't do French.
I don't either. But yeah, we're going to start reading that, all 1,400 pages or something. We're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with that.
I have a daughter that has taught herself French. I think I might have to disown her.
She may not be yours if she did that. Which one is that? 1, 2, or 3?
2.
Oh, okay. Huh.
She's reading Les Mis in French on her Kindle.
Savage.
She's an odd child. Mission accomplished. That's what I wanted to do.
She's going to read Montaigne. We'll see about that. Let's see if I got any other questions here. Oh, how much does it cost? It's $59 a month. If you use the promo code that we give you, which is OGB Podcast, or go to onlinegreatbooks.com/OGB Podcast, you get 25% off your first 3 months. So that's good. And then somebody says, why does it cost so much? Because it costs a bunch to do it, really.
If it's too much for you, it's too much for you, and we're sorry, and hope you'll keep listening to the podcast and maybe start your own group with the free, or get your own books. Great. But when you consider that we've got to staff it, we've got to staff the seminars, that you are getting books shipped to you, that it is less than your cable television. If you have cable television, I guarantee you pay more than $59 a month. If you have high-speed internet, you pay more than that. What's your phone bill? What's your Netflix bill? How much are you paying for HBO or Disney Plus or Hulu or
Disney Plus?
All of that other stuff. You got to see Baby Yoda on Disney Plus. So how much money are you paying a month? You might find that those things are not as worthwhile and that you may just want to cut them out. That's one of the things our friends at youneedabudget.com that if you sign up for there and you can see, the good thing it did for me is it makes my expenses come through every month and I see them. And if you have a repeating monthly expense, say, oh my gosh, I'm spending a whole lot on this thing. I don't think we're that much. Yeah. Compared to, I don't think so. Compared to other things. And if it's too much, okay.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, by the time we send everybody books, I'm going to rail about Oxford Press for a minute.
Go.
Oxford Press, we buy a couple of big, really nice books from Oxford Press. And we buy quite a few. I was told the other day by one of the publishers that we are the biggest buyer of Plato that they have. I don't doubt that. And so this book, this is the Aristotle. the narrow end of our funnel has been working in Aristotle, but as we go on, there'll be more and more of our readers are in Aristotle. We buy a lot of it. And Oxford Press charges me the same price I can buy the books on Amazon at. The problem with buying them from Amazon, though, is Amazon doesn't have enough in stock.
Mm-hmm.
When I started this little business, I didn't know how I was going to do it all. So I would actually just buy them on Amazon and have them primed right over to the person's house. I mean, that's how we did it for the first several months, because we were just trying to prove the concept and get it working and so on. And then we found that Amazon didn't have enough of anything that we needed in stock. They don't have 220 copies in stock of the Iliad. So we had to start stock. We had to buy our own inventory just to make sure that we never ran out. So I can't use Amazon, and Oxford doesn't cut me a shilling on those things. And then by the time I ship the heavy book, it actually costs me more than it would cost for you to prime the book to your own home. But, I can't tell the clients, hey, go to Amazon and buy it, because Amazon never has enough of these obscure titles in stock to do it, to serve our clients. So I always have to buy the books. We ship our bigger books in good boxes now because we don't want them bent up. The shipping's high. And then we have good people running the seminars, and we have to pay them. So we're never going to scale like an internet business does, where it gets like more and more profitable, where it's just not really going to happen. That's okay.
I really like that we're causing book shortages.
Yeah. I mean,
which, that's amazing. We're this little small potatoes thing, and we are causing there to be shortages of the Iliad.
Yeah.
Which means nobody was reading this thing, but now they are.
Here's something that's funny. I started this. By the way, I think it was 2 years ago today. I think today's the birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. On my graves. I was buying the Iliad, like a lot of the Iliad, And one day I walked into Barnes & Noble here in town. If you're a hillbilly, you say Barnes & Nobles. I walked into Barnes & Noble here in Tulsa, and there was a 6-foot-tall Iliad poster in there. I think they knew about like Tulsa, Oklahoma Iliad consumption habits.
Mm-hmm.
Like who makes a 6-foot-tall Robert Fagel's Iliad poster to put in a big box store? No one.
The algorithm did. The Barnes & Noble's algorithm saw there was a spike in demand in Tulsa.
Yeah.
The classical revival of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And targeted you.
Yeah, I think so. But so we buy our own books. We maintain our own inventory and have become we're not really a bookseller, right? But it's kind of a book club, kind of. Major buyer of books. Somebody in here says, what if I'm out of the country? A few years back, I said there'll be news for Brazil, maybe. Well, a lot of Brazil is in the central time zone, the same time zone as GMT -6. As we are in, and we can help those people. We now have an option where you can buy 6 months or 12 months subscription at a time, and you get a discount. And we've done that really for our international clients because we could put all the books in one box and ship them ahead. And because some of our friends from other countries have less expeditious customs offices than we do. When I ship to England, a box of books can sit in customs for 10 days over there. And so rather than have your book be late every single month, it's only late once a year that way. Yeah. It actually, if you do the 6 month or 12 month option, we actually ship them far enough ahead of time that nothing's ever late. So if you're in Brazil or wherever, we can probably help you out. The problem is, are you awake when we have seminars? We have a lot of friends in Australia that want to sign up, and they aren't awake at 7 p.m. GMT -6 when our seminars are. And we all often have 2 p.m. Central Standard Time in the United States, and sometimes our European friends can get in those. But that's the main problem with other countries. What are you reading next, Carl?
After the Gulag?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know. I want to find a continental thing for you.
Thanks. I've never read a word of Husserl.
Yeah, he's not too accessible. I'm trying to find a digestible bit. The problem with Heidegger is you end up reading it, and like he has a short lecture, the controversial lecture that he gave, What is Metaphysics? It's short. We could do that. There's some later stuff that he wrote on technology that you might actually find less problematic. But Heidegger's really influential, but in the end, you're like, what am I supposed to take away from this? and I have a book of somebody calling him a charlatan. And some days I think it might be true.
Yeah.
But he's super smart, and you read it and you think, this is a really smart person I'm reading. And I don't want to read Sartre.
No. Bad physiognomy, by the way. He's got eyes like a flounder. They don't look the same way. Like, I don't know about that guy. My mother-in-law has a French bulldog that I think is like mentally handicapped, and he has the same eyes.
Mm-hmm. I have a soft spot in my heart for Camus.
Yeah.
There's a book of his called The Plague, which is a hard book in the same way the Gulag's a hard book. He's got a play about Caligula, which is interesting.
I'm always game for a Caligula play.
I don't know. I'm digging. I want to find something. And I love Kierkegaard. Fear and Trembling is good fun. Might be a little religious. It's all about the Abraham story.
We need to read some works on aesthetics.
Okay.
Needs to come up. There's a little Schopenhauer on aesthetics, I think. I don't know. We need to find some.
I haven't Schopenhauered very much.
I like art. We're friends. That's not popular.
Find a chunk of Schopenhauer and I'm game for it.
Next show, we're going to do with our friend Michelle Hawkins, who's a member at OGB, and we're going to be listening to. Actually, we probably won't listen on the show. I got to figure out how to do that. We might be able to listen on the show. I got a little technical stuff there. Beethoven's Symphony Number 3, and we'll be talking about that. And then we'll also read his Heiligenstadt Testament, which is a letter that he wrote to his brothers as or after he lost his hearing. Yeah, well, we'll be talking about that one on the next show. Carl, what's your favorite book?
Do I have to give one?
You can give 3. None of them can be Catcher in the Rye.
None of them are Catcher in the Rye.
Of course not. We're friends.
Iliad, Lord of the Rings.
Same book. Okay. No.
I'm not sure what's in third place. How about you?
Walden. It changes for me, but I'm going to say Walden is way, way up there. I don't know if it's 1 or not, but it's way up there. And then, can I say my Aristotle Complete Works?
that's like,
is that a book?
Like 25 books.
Yeah, it's either his ethics or his metaphysics. I'd say there's 1, 2, and 3. How about that?
That's good.
Is there anybody farther apart than Thoreau and Aristotle?
Parmenides and Heraclitus.
If those guys ever shook hands, they would annihilate each other and emit a photon. Speaking of Parmenides, I have read the Parmenides, the Plato's dialogue, the Parmenides, one time. It was very difficult for me, and I want you and I to read it again.
Okay.
More that is and being and all that.
Yeah, it might be a joke.
It might be a joke.
It's a very, very young Socrates.
Yeah.
And Parmenides just blows him up. It's kind of fun. Yeah, we can do that. I'm thinking David Hume someday.
Mm-hmm.
He's funny. You're making faces.
Yeah. Again, as a guy that started out sort of libertarian, I have flipped on Locke and Hume in the last, 40 hours or so. and we'll have hot takes. How about that?
Yeah.
There will be hot takes. Okay, speaking of hot take, once the last baby boomer shuffles off this mortal coil, Catcher in the Rye will be forgotten.
Was there even a book called Catcher in the Rye?
I don't think so. So bad. Don't at me.
So when we were talking about academics, if you read books in high school, there is a good chance you read a bunch of trending books that were the favorites of whoever designed English curricula when you were in high school. And so Catcher in the Rye was inflicted on a whole lot of people. Lord of the Flies was inflicted on a whole lot of people.
Of Mice and Men.
I have seen Handmaid's Tale be taught in high school English classes. These are trendy books. Are they great books? I don't think so. They're books that your English teacher liked.
Yeah.
I have books that I like too, but at Online Great Books, the book list is not made by me. It's made by other people who are safely dead and are immune to the trends of the current day.
Yeah.
And I think we added Cicero, didn't we? We added a little bit to the list, but it's mostly Adler's list.
It's mostly Adler's list. Cicero, some Seneca.
Yeah, but it's not trending bestsellers. So you're safe from Carl Schutz's predilections or Scott Hambrick's or whoever else is, or Marcia Enright's or something. We're not going to, or Maliki. We're not picking our favorite books. We'll do our favorite books on the podcast.
Right.
But in the program, this is stuff that has stood the test of time and that is a huge thought grenade. You're going to pick out some Walt Whitman for us?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, how do I like Walt Whitman and Shakespeare leaves me cold?
You're weird on poetry.
I'm weird on poetry. That's going to be my other podcast. Weird on poetry, and I just deuce on everybody's verse.
I would subscribe.
I think you've got a heart out. We're gonna have to wrap this up. I hope that answered some questions that some of you may have, and I hope it was a good show. I never want to put out one that's not fun and compelling for you guys. We try to offer the best of infotainment.
I'm looking forward to the next week of listening to Symphony No. 3.
That's Beethoven's work on, for, to, about Napoleon, yeah?
Originally.
Yeah, and
but then
they're like, that ain't cool.
He got mad at Napoleon for some reason. I'm sure Michelle will tell us.
Yeah. Eroica, they called it for a time.
Yeah, that's the story of, who's the director of the Embassy Symphony? Toscanini. People were saying this is a fascist symphony. It's like, he's not the Mussolini. It is Allegro con brio. It's not about that. It's the music itself. It's not about Napoleon. It's not about Mussolini. It's about, that was my bad Italian accent.
I love it.
It's the music stands on its own, no matter who it was written for.
So we'll talk about that. So I will be 100% out of my depth on that show. Stay tuned.
I doubt it.
There's another Online Great Books podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. And we've gotten a number of reviews on the iTunes, and they've all been very kind. So thank you for doing that. The more those, nobody knows how any of this game works, right? It's all a black box, and somebody in Cupertino is a kingmaker, but we think that if you leave good reviews and if there are enough of them come in, it causes us to trend a little more and it attracts more people to the show. That's what we think happens.
Yeah, but dear friends, you know how you can beat the algorithm? You go face to face to somebody you know in real life and you say, I like this podcast.
That's a return to realism. Look at that.
Then you're not dependent on Cupertino.
Yeah, those guys. I'm not sure Cupertino is real keen on people reading Aristotle. Yeah, so go and leave a review at your place. That might be Stitcher or iTunes or iHeart. I think we're on iHeartRadio now, Google Play, wherever that might be. M.N. O'Brien left us a 5-star review. It says, read the books first. I agree. He says, then listen to the podcast about whichever book is on tap. It's the next best thing to an actual conversation or seminar. My only issue is sometimes I disagree with the host and end up shouting at the radio. That just means the podcast is engaging.
Wait, he's disagreeing with you, not me.
Right. Well, one of us, because we don't agree. Yeah. It's good. There are a lot of good ones on here, so thank you guys for doing that, right? We appreciate it very much. Chris says, the podcast is just what I've been looking for. The longest time, he kept a list of the great books he intended to read, but life kept throwing me more urgent projects to tend to. Scott and Carl's fun and thoughtful conversations about the great books have inspired me to pick up a few and actually work my way through them. I'm halfway through King Lear right now, and it's a wild ride. Thank you guys for the great work you're doing on this podcast and at the OGB program. I hope you get 1 million listeners. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for reading.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, tell a buddy, tell an enemy that they should listen to the show. And we will talk to you guys next week when we will be discussing Beethoven's Symphony Number 3. So go find that somewhere and listen to it. Get a little pad, and pen and paper there. Turn off your phone and turn on that symphony and jot down a few words that come to you and think about it and then leave. And then come back and listen to it again. And then go and have a work day. And then come back and listen to it again. And then we'll talk about it next Thursday, all right? Anything else, Carl?
No, I think that's it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a delight. Thank you guys so much.
Bye.